My name's Dan Skelsey, and this is the first of two videos from Project Laneways giving you some background to allow you to prepare for the PRINCE2 Practitioner exam. In this video we'll look at the overall structure of the exam, we'll look at the syllabus topics, we'll look at the question types, and we'll give you some tips on timing strategy. In the next video we'll drill down on certain types of questions and look more closely at strategies for dealing with those. Be sure to catch both videos. Right, well let's start. When you first start a PRINCE2 Practitioner exam, you will be given three booklets: a scenario booklet, a question booklet, and an answer booklet. In the scenario booklet, the first thing you will find is the scenario itself. This is a one-page description of the scenario for the entire project. It applies to the whole exam, and it is the backdrop to the questions. You won't find the answers to any of the questions in the scenario, but you'll have trouble understanding the questions unless you've read the scenario. Also in the scenario booklet, you will find additional information for some of the questions. Approximately as a rule of thumb, about 2/3 of the questions have additional information. This additional information can take the form of a highlight report, an email from the project executive, something of that sort. With the additional information, you will need to read it, and you may find answers to the questions in the additional information. But we'll talk more about the additional information later. The question booklet, of course, the question booklet has the questions that you need to ask. There are a total of 80 multiple choice items that you need to address in the exam. And finally, you will have the answer booklet. The answer booklet is 2 or 3 pages of ovals to fill in to mark your answer. So if you think the answer to a particular multiple choice item is B, you fill in the appropriate oval marked B. It's very like the foundation exam, but of course there are more items to fill in. So some more about the additional information. There's a couple of things to understand about the additional information, and the first and perhaps the most important thing is that the additional information only applies to the question that it says it applies to. At the top of each piece of additional information, it will have a line saying something like, this additional information applies to question 7, or perhaps to question 7b. And then at the top of the appropriate question, it will say, using the additional information provided. This additional information only applies to the questions that it says it applies to, and not to any of the other questions. It's important to understand they are not building up a story in this exam. You can, in theory, do these questions in any order you like. You could do question 6 before you do question 3. And finally, one more thing about the additional information. Don't get caught out. The additional information can spread across more than one page. Check to see if the additional information is only on one page or covers more than one page. Of course, the PRINCE2 Practitioner exam is an open book exam, and this is the only book that you're allowed to take into the exam. You are allowed to highlight sections of the book, you are allowed to write notes in the margin, you are allowed to tab chapters or individual pages to quickly find them when you need them during the exam. But you are not allowed to staple in extra information or glue in extra information. While you are doing the exam, you will not have a lot of time to look things up in the book, but you do have some time. And one of the most useful resources that you can find in the book is Appendix A. Appendix A is an alphabetical list of all the PRINCE2 management products, and a surprisingly large number of questions can be answered simply by referring to Appendix A. So please, when you get a question about a PRINCE2 management product, look it up immediately in Appendix A. It will help tremendously. Let's look at the exam syllabus and the exam marking. There are 7 PRINCE2 themes, and there is 1 syllabus topic for each one of the 7 themes. There are 7 PRINCE2 processes, and they've been divided into 3 syllabus topics. This means there is a total of 10 syllabus topics. You will be asked questions on 8 of these topics. There will be 6 questions on the theme topics and 2 questions on the process topics. Exam marking. There are 8 syllabus topic questions. Each topic question has 10 items. Each item is its own individual multiple choice question, and each item is worth 1 mark. The items are grouped together in parts, so there might be question 6 part A, question 6 part B, but there are always a total of 10 items per syllabus topic question. This means that the total marks for the exam is 8 times 10 or 80 marks, and the pass mark is 44 marks or 55%. There is no negative marking. This means that if you mark down the wrong answer, they won't deduct a mark, but they won't add a mark. This leads to an obvious strategy, which is to answer every question. The only way of guaranteeing that you won't get a mark for a question is by simply not answering it. Let's talk about exam timing. The exam is 2.5 hours long, and this includes your reading time. This is our suggested timetable. We suggest that you allow 10 minutes at the beginning to read the scenario, and then there are 8 topic questions. We suggest you allow 15 minutes per topic question. Each topic question has 10 items. Each item is worth 1 mark. This means that you allow about 1.5 minutes per mark. If you follow this timetable of 10 minutes for the reading the scenario, 15 minutes for each of the 8 topic questions, this will also leave you 20 minutes up your sleeve for contingency time at the end of the exam. Before we summarise, let's have a quick look at the different types of questions that you might come across. The whole exam is multiple choice, but it's multiple choice like you've probably never seen before. There are 5 different types of questions, ranging from fairly simple multiple choice through to quite complex questions called assertion and reason. We're going to look at each style of question in detail, but to explain these questions we're going to use examples of food. This makes it easier to concentrate on the style of the question and means that we don't get bogged down into PRINCE2 theory. First up, we have what we call the classic multiple choice question. 1 question, 4 options, or possibly 3 options, and 1 answer. It's a little bit like the questions in the foundation exam, except notice that each of the options is a full sentence, and the full sentence must be true for the option to be true. Just looking at this particular example, the question is about the project team having fruit for lunch, and the question is, which of the following is true about fruit? Option A, apples are fruit. That is true. They grow on trees. That is also true. But then it says only in Australia, and that is not true because apples also grow in other countries. So option A is false. You had to read until the end of the option though to discover that. Option B, oranges are a stone fruit. No, that's not true. Option C, tomatoes are a fruit and they're used in a lot of Italian recipes. Yes, that seems true. However, let's just check the 4th option just to make sure we've got the right story. And the 4th option says cabbages are fruit. Well, no, they're not. They're a vegetable, and we can reject that. Simple, classic multiple choice. 1 question, 3 or 4 options, 1 answer, 1 mark. But read each option carefully. Next up, we have what we call multiple response questions. There will always be 5 options, and you need to get 2 correct answers to get 1 mark. Each of these multiple response questions requires 2 options to be true, and you must select both options correctly to get the 1 mark. So let's have a look at this particular question. Which 2 statements are true about vegetables? Option A, bananas are a vegetable. No, that's false. Option B, coconuts can be a vegetable. No, that's false. Option C, potatoes and turnips are root vegetables. That sounds good. Option D, peas are vegetables. Yes, that sounds true, but are usually the main ingredient of a fruit salad. Not in my house. And that leaves option E, broccoli is a green vegetable with stalks that can be eaten. Yes, that sounds true as well. Remember, you need 2 options from the 5. One of the best approaches to this question is to first eliminate the obviously wrong and see what you've got left. Then we have matching questions. In matching questions we have 2 columns, items or statements in column 1 and categories or types of management product in column 2. The idea is to match the items in column 1 against the categories in column 2. It may be that the category in column 2 is used more than once, or it may be that some of the categories are not used at all. Looking at this particular question, going through the 5 items, we have apples, they're B, a fruit. Bananas, they're also B, a fruit. 3, a plastic table, that is A, not a food. 4, eggs, which is E, it's a food but not one of the above food groups, and 5, steel girder, which is also A, not a food. As you can see, we've used A a couple of times, we've used B a couple of times, and we have not used D at all. In the example on the screen, there are 5 questions, 5 answers, and 5 marks. Generally, these matching questions are relatively straightforward and are quite quick to do. Compared to some of the other questions, they're faster to do. Sequencing questions. Superficially, sequencing questions look a little bit like matching questions. However, what we're being asked to do is take the items in column 1 and put them into a sequential order. There is also a possibility that one or more of the items in column 1 don't actually belong in that order. Looking at the example we have in front of us, which is about a dinner party, desserts are the third course, so they're D. Starters are the first course, so they're B. Mains are the second course, so they're C. Wrestling alligators don't belong in the sequence, at least not at the dinner parties I go to, so they are A. And coffee is the final stage, so it's E, fourth. Generally, with the sequencing questions, rather than take each item on its own merits, it is best to find a bit of scrap paper and work out the sequence for all of them before answering any of them. The final question type is what they call assertion reason. What we have here is a set of assertions and a set of reasons. On the screen in front of you, you've got 3 assertions, 3 reasons, 3 rows, 3 questions, and 3 marks. This would count as 3 items. The idea here is to answer the question, is the assertion true or false? Is the reason true or false? And if both the assertion and the reason are true, then does the reason explain the assertion or doesn't it? So if you look at the table above, you will see that the answer A means that both the assertion and the reason are true and the reason explains the assertion. Whereas the answer B means that both the assertion and the reason are true, but the reason does not explain the assertion. C is true false, D is false true, and E is both are false. The way to approach these questions is to do them one column at a time instead of one row at a time. So we will go down the reason column and look at the reason statements, working out whether each one is true or not on its own merits, and then we will flip it and go down the assertion column, trying to see whether each statement is true or not on its own merits. Looking at the first reason, chilies are a spicy food, that is a true statement. Looking at the second reason statement, bacon and eggs both come from chickens, that is a false statement. And the third reason, apples are fruit, is a true statement. Now swapping to the assertion column, we see the first statement is chilies are often used in curries, that is true. The second assertion statement is bacon and eggs are considered to be a traditional English breakfast, that is also true. And the third statement, apples are usually red or green, that is also true. So in the assertion column, we have 3 true statements. Uncovering both columns, we can see that line 2, we have a true false. So we already know that the answer is C. But in lines 1 and in lines 3, we have 2 trues. So now we have to look at them again to see whether the answer is A or B. Looking at the first row, chilies are often used in curries because chilies are a spicy food. The reason does seem to explain the assertion, so the answer would be A. However, looking at line 3, apples are usually red or green because apples are a fruit. The reason does not seem to explain the assertion, so we have a B. The important thing to remember with these questions is to do them one column at a time instead of one row at a time. So to summarise, there are 8 syllabus topic questions in this exam. 6 of them are on themes and 2 of them are on processes. Each topic question has 10 items and each item is its own multiple choice question and each item is worth 1 mark. This means there's a total of 80 marks in the exam and the pass mark is 44 marks or 55%. You have 2.5 hours for this exam. Our suggested timetable is that you allow 10 minutes to read the scenario and then allow 15 minutes per topic question. That equates to 1.5 minutes a mark. If you follow this timetable, it will give you a 20-minute contingency period at the end of the exam. It is an open book exam, and this is the only book that you're allowed to take in. You are allowed to highlight sections, you are allowed to write notes in the margin, you are allowed to tab pages so that you can find them again quickly, but you are not allowed to stick any additional material into this book. During the exam, Appendix A is a surprisingly useful resource, and if you are asked any questions about PRINCE2 management products, you should turn to the appropriate entry in Appendix A. There are 5 different types of multiple choice questions, and really you should practice these. Which takes me to preparing for the Project Laneways PRINCE2 Practitioner workshop. You should watch this video, you should watch our other video, and then using the material that we either mailed to you or gave you in the foundation course, material about preparing for the PRINCE2 Practitioner exam, you should work your way through the exercises in this material. These exercises will take you through a whole sample paper and put you in a very good position to approach the PRINCE2 Practitioner exam. Finally, I'd like to wish you all good luck.